Well, Vladimir Putin doesn't have the emotion of shame. He's a psychopath. He's a KGB-trained psychopath, and so his only emotions are how does he manipulate the person he's meeting with, and so I can't imagine under any circumstances that they're going to have a meeting.
And what kind of so-called KGB tactics Vladimir Putin could use during his personal upcoming meeting with Trump?
Well, I think that Trump has all sorts of different ways in which he gets excited by heads of state. Putin could offer him money or business. Putin could offer him, help with Iran. Putin can offer him all sorts of things. And Putin will offer him all sorts of things because, of course, Donald Trump isn't doing this for free. He wants something from it, but he doesn't want the sovereignty of Ukraine from it. He wants something for himself.
And do you feel that Putin is ready to offer Trump something that could be presented as a big victory for Trump?
Of course, he's going to offer Trump an opportunity to say that this whole thing is Russia and the United States are all together, and Ukraine is the one causing all this trouble, and why are we letting this country cause all this trouble? And we should just get on with life as two superpowers. That's his pitch to Trump.
Let's also cover financial sanctions and secondary tariffs. US President Donald Trump has doubled US tariffs on India to 50%, up from 25%, officially penalizing India for purchasing Russian oil. How harmful is this new tariff for India and both for Russia?
Well, there are the two biggest buyers of Russian oil are China and India. And so they're the countries that supply Russia with the cash that Russia needs in order to carry on with this war. And cutting out one of those countries is quite helpful. I don't know if the Indians have stopped buying Russian oil. It doesn't look like it just based on the oil price. It's not gone up dramatically. But if Trump was really serious about this, he would also go after China, he would go after Turkey, he'd go after every other country that did this, and he wouldn't do it with just 50% tariffs. There's a piece of legislation out there which is sponsored by Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Richard Blumenthal, which would impose 500% tariffs. 85 senators out of 100 have co-sponsored the legislation. But so far, Trump has insisted that this piece of legislation doesn't get voted on. And instead, we have a piece of policy from the White House to impose 50% tariffs, 25 plus 25 on India, none on China, none on Turkey. The deadline came and passed. I should point out that Trump has made 5 ultimatums to Putin with all sorts of threats, and all of those 5 ultimatums have come and gone without him following through.
There are also concerns that these tariffs against India could force India to have closer ties with Russia. What is your take on that?
Well, if the sanctions were serious, and then India wouldn't have closer ties with Russia. If the world surrounded India and said you buy Russian oil, you can't do business with us, India would choose the rest of the world over Russia, because Russia is a small place, the rest of the world is a big place. India's got a big economy, they rely on the rest of the world.
And do you think that this tariff against India is not serious enough to force India to stop buying Russian oil?
Well, I suspect that this tariff is not a serious tariff at all, and that it will be withdrawn in the next couple of days. I think it probably gets withdrawn after Friday. He's probably already told Modi this. It's probably window dressing, a sort of charade in advance of this summit.
What was the main aim of this tariff? Do you see this as a negotiating tactic?
Well, if it was sincere, it would be a really good policy. As I said, India buys an enormous amount of oil. I think the numbers are, since the beginning of the war, they've bought more than $300 billion worth of oil from Russia. That's $300 billion that Russia has to spend on the war. And so if you cut that off, that's very meaningful. But it's not clear that is being cut off. It's not even clear what's going on, because none of the other countries have been sanctioned or tariffed. And it's not clear what's going to happen after Friday and this week as far as India is concerned.
It also seems like Donald Trump is not yet ready to impose a high tariff on China over the purchasing of Russian oil. What are the chances for this?
Well, I think the chances are quite low. I think it's unfortunately not in the cards. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but this of course would make a big difference. But I don't see it happening.
If these negotiations this Friday in Alaska fully collapse, what could and what should President Trump do?
Well, I've always thought that President Trump should supply weapons to Ukraine and should cut off Russia's ability to sell oil to the rest of the world. Those two things would make a huge difference.
Let's also cover a recent news publication by the New York Times about the Putin's inner circle. There was an interesting publication about the role of Mr. Kozak, the former close aide to Vladimir Putin. According to the New York Times, he was the only one senior Kremlin officials who did not support Russia's war against Ukraine. He also urged Putin not to invade Ukraine. What is your take on this interesting information about the only one person who was against this war?
Well, I guess he probably should stay away from tall buildings, private jets, and drinking tea. That's my analysis of Putin. Doesn't tolerate anybody who's truly against him. And if this is true, then that's not. I wouldn't bet on a long life for this particular individual.
Do you feel that there could be some other opinions in Putin's inner circle right now about the possibility, about the ceasefire deal, the need for Russia to have peace?
Russia is an authoritarian dictatorship. Opinions of anybody other than the dictator don't matter. And so it's irrelevant what anyone else thinks. And I'm sure there's lots of different opinions and thoughts, but I'm also sure that those people are not expressing those opinions and thoughts because they understand that doing so could be certainly unprofitable and potentially very dangerous.
However, public opinion in Russia seems to be more supportive for a peace deal with Ukraine. What is your take on that also?
Well, again, in a dictatorship, public opinion is irrelevant. It doesn't matter what people think. I think that in the end, Russian people, of course, they should be totally against this war. I mean, can you imagine how awful it is to be a young Russian man and being sent into this battle where you're almost certainly going to die? How can anyone like that? How can the people going to die like it? How can their wives and mothers and daughters and sons like it? I think everybody would like to live in a normal country that's not at war. But it doesn't really matter what they think. All that matters is what Vladimir Putin thinks. And he wants to continue this war.
Let's also cover our final topic, the deal, American-backed deal between Armenia and Azerbaijan. According to The Economist, this deal would weaken Russia in the region. Do you support this opinion?
Well, Russia already has been weakened in the region. If you remember, there was this, Russia was supposed to be defending Armenia from Azerbaijan. And because Russia got distracted in I guess all their resources in Ukraine, Azerbaijan invaded Nagorno-Karabakh and seized territory. And so as a result, Russia has lost its influence over Armenia. And I think that this is potentially one of the other symbols of the whole thing is by having these two presidents at the White House under Trump, not at the Kremlin under Putin.
Do you see this as a good sign, at least?
Well, anytime that Russia is weakened, I see it as a good sign. And I mean, it's not a good sign to have Armenia invaded by Azerbaijan, but it's a good sign that Russia is losing its international influence because they've overextended themselves. That's helpful.